Hello, everyone. This is Ken Quigley from Keystroke, and this is the second week where we're doing the Act V27 feature tour. We're doing them in segments. On the 25th, we'll be doing a public webinar that covers all of them, but for the benefit of the ACCs and the people at ACT, we are doing them in chunks so we can do a slightly deeper dive and have questions as well. So this week, last week we covered what's called Primary Contact Plus. This week we're covering two features. One is list lookup, and the other one is append to field. And as you might guess, the names are pretty indicative of what the functions are. So let's get into it. We're going to start with list lookup. So list lookups, ACT lookups are generally designed to search the database for one value for one or more results. So if I type in, keystroke in the company field, I'm going to get a bunch of results. But I can't type in keystroke and ACT and some other company's name and look them all up at the same time without building an advanced query. Advanced query might be fine for 2 or 3 values from an append to value, okay, or perspective, but our general use cases are tend to be far more voluminous and lengthy than that. So that feature isn't really supported. What the lookups are not designed, as I said, is to look up for multiple values, like a list of emails or a list of account numbers or a list of anything for that matter. Okay, so Act V27 will solve that problem with the new list lookup. So the list lookup, right now we'll click on list, we'll have lookup, and what you're going to see here is the standard. What you're used to is the value, the operator, sorry, the field, the value, the operator. Okay. What you're not going to see is having to do a whole lot of values or put in the operators for each and every single one. You're just going to paste this in here very, very simply. So what's the immediate most obvious use case? And that's email. So let's say I do an email campaign. I go into AMA, I do an export of of all the bounces, and I want to look up the contacts with all the bounces. I can do that in one step. There is nothing in ACT that would otherwise support that. And what I've done, I'm just going to cancel this so we can see how it works. Going to click on list or lookup, going to click on list lookup. So here, as I said, we've got the field, we've got the operator, and we've got the values. Okay. Now, if you have used, and I know, Bud, you've used our old list lookup or what's called multi-search in the past, multi-search had a tool where it would actually, if you looked up, say, emails, it had an SQL function that would join several, like all of the email fields together. We removed that, okay, just for the complexity purposes, and we didn't want to be running background SQL searches in this. So it is really only going to work on one email field, okay? With that disclaimer in place, let me show you how it works. So we've selected the email field, and the default, by the way, you don't have to set this each and every time. The default will be email and contains if you don't do anything, okay? So now I'm going to paste in a bunch of fields. Pretty easy. So let's just imagine this list was the list of people that bounced. I can now do a quick lookup, and this will typically take 3 to 5 seconds. And now I've got the list here. Okay. Now that is something that that I think when you're working with a much larger list of people that are bounces, it's going to find it in the same amount of time. But one thing that the multi-search did not have, okay, and I know a lot of you guys have used the multi-search in the past, is the ability to create a reverse lookup. So let's say you're dealing with a smaller database and you want to do a lookup of the people that bounced, but only because you want to look up everyone that didn't. So now you click on lookup, list lookup, and you change this to does not contain. That was pretty fast. Okay, so now in a second or two, you're able to do a reverse lookup of everyone else. Now, most of the people on this call are ACCs. So imagine if you got a list of all your renewing accounts next week, okay, or sorry, for next month, and you wanted to do a quick lookup. You can simply select the field. Okay, click on list lookup, change it here. Okay, go down to, we'll just say account number here, put in contains, and you can paste in all of your account numbers and then get an immediate lookup of all your renewing accounts. Conversely, if you wanted to see everyone that wasn't renewing next month, then you can do it that way as well. Okay. Obviously, emails are much more reliable because they're typically in every single contact, but this is a pretty powerful tool for being able to work with and look up a lot of contacts at once. Okay. Um, as you might guess, doing this under the lookup and advanced queries and having to put in, or down a long list would be time prohibitive. So this allows you to do it in just a quick paste. Let me just pause and see if there's any questions. Okay, that seems pretty simple. Let me just see if there's any other points I wanted to cover here. So we covered that for me, the most common use case is looking up emails from either bounce lists or complaints or anything else like that. Accounts for renewing months. Okay, as opposed to doing advanced lookup. Okay, cool. Let's go on to the next one. The next one, doesn't jump off the page quite as nicely as the multi-search or the list lookup in terms of utility, but depending on the use case, I think that you're going to find this equally useful. Okay, this feature is called append to lookup, and what it is, it allows you to do a lookup and add values to a particular field. Now, when you think about it, when you go to the edit values here, okay, you've got replace, which includes replacing all values in a single field from a lookup, copy, which includes copying all values from one field into another field in a lookup, um, and then swapping values, okay, or copying all values into a field from another field in a lookup and then swapping values. So those are the three options that you've got under this. There is the problem with all of those is that they're destructive. Whatever was in the field before will get wiped out in favor of the incoming value. Okay, so it's important to think, well, that isn't obviously going to suit all the use cases, okay, because that is a destructive function. But if you wanted to add a value to a lookup from an import, okay, so let's say you did a lookup or you did an import and you wanted to narrow down and make that one lookup easy, because a lot of people, that when they do an import, they tend to update one field, okay, just for the sake of easy grouping. But if you use the one field over and over again, you might want to have that multi-select function so that those imported contacts can actually be have several values to them, okay, for grouping purposes. So what we've done is we've got here this append to value. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lookup here. So we'll just do a lookup under ID status, and I'm going to select KPP partners. Okay, next short list, and now I'm going to add here at the end of this. Now this is only going to work with character fields, and it's only going to work in for multi-select. You can work with character fields, but understand that aren't multi-select, but understand that then you're adding a new value. So like if I did an append and this wasn't a multi-select, I would essentially be adding a new value. Okay. Something like if I wanted to put in partner colon friend, then essentially the partner colon friend would be one value, not KPP partner and then separate in value. So let me separate friend. So let me just show you how that works. So now I'm going to click on append and I'm going to click on ID status, ID, and I'm going to type in, now it says a little message here. If you are appending to a field linked to a dropdown with existing values, please add a leading semicolon to your value. For regular character fields, simply add a space. Okay, so I'm going to put in a semicolon and I'm going to put in friend. So you notice that this is being appended without destroying anything. Okay, you see I've added a new value here, friend, it's checked. And obviously if you've got limit to list, you'll have to comply with those rules. You can't just add something that doesn't comply with limit to list. But now you can actually see that this is being added in as a separate line. Okay, and you can see here that it's being added to every single record without touching any of the existing values. Okay, now if this wasn't a multi-select field and you wanted to do an append, just understand that you're going to be adding that value to whatever is there. Okay, so if I did a lookup, okay, actually, let's say industry, and I'm going to do cleaning fields. Okay, and let me just bring this in here. Bring this up. Okay, so now you can see cleaning service, but this is a standard character field without a dropdown, without multi-select. So if I do here, and I select, and I'm being really specific because you guys are all ACCs, so I need you guys to understand what will happen under different circumstances. So now I've selected ID status, and I'm going to put in janitorial, okay? Actually, I screwed up. That wasn't what I wanted to do here. I'm going to modify, okay, industry, and say colon janitorial. So even though I've used a colon, a semicolon, I should say, we'll watch what happens here. We'll go to detail view. You're going to see this is an appended value. There's cleaning service, and now there's cleaning service colon janitorial. Okay. The difference, obviously, is the previous field ID status was multi-select. This one includes a drop-down, but is not multi-select, single select. So by appending, I've actually just created a new value, which essentially, is a search and replace by doing this. So there's not much point to that function, but I wanted to explain how you're required to use both character and multi-selects for this to be of use. But there are going to be use cases where you're going to want to add an appending value to a single select lookup. I was trying to think of one. I couldn't come up with anything that was particularly clever. Okay, so now I'll just reverse what I did. Okay, and put in. And go through that. Okay, so we've covered the two of the features that are being added to V27, and both of them are meant to save you time. Both of them are meant to help you get more done in less time. But I'm going to tell you something that where this particular feature made me a lot of money and saved me a ton of time. So I had a customer that loved checkbox fields and had like 30 checkbox fields, and it was cluttering up his layout, and he had to have a separate tab just to cover them all. And I said, what if I can take these 30 checkbox fields and combine them into like 3 or 4 drop downs? And it was like, that would be fantastic. So what I did was I created the four, let's just say 4 drop down fields, and I put in that the multi-select list for each, I put in all the appropriate checkbox values. Okay. And then what I did was I did a lookup of each checkbox, and then I said append to value. So the first one, let's say I looked up the value 1, and I said, okay, all of these contacts put in value 1. And then I did another lookup and I said append to for value 2, blah, blah, blah. And I was dealing with thousands and thousands of contacts. But because I can do an append to and not a destructive search and replace, I was able to take the values from 30 some odd checkbox fields and combine them into 3 or 4 drop down fields. Customer was delighted. Okay. And I could not think of a way without this tool that I could have done that in any kind of time efficient way. Okay, so that is probably going to be one of the more common use cases when you're doing data cleanup. But you're also going to run into the import feature where you're trying to use one field to capture maybe the source or the purpose of imports. Okay, so let me pause. I've covered the feature tour of these two features, and I've covered as best as I can the use cases. Any questions on this? And I will say this, as I said it last week, these are being introduced as SDK plugins. There is absolutely no roadmap plans to introduce them into web. So be sure to stress to any of your customers using desktop sync, again, why it's important to keep a desktop sync around so that you can perform some of these time efficient functions with these new tools. So let me just see any questions. Scott, you normally jump in with some questions. Anything from you this week? Nothing?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
I said, Scott, do you normally have questions every single week? You got
Yeah,
anything
I
for?
was just I think the append is fantastic, but you made an exceptional example of why you can really screw things up with it, because you want to now, okay, I did the wrong field, now what? How do I get rid of that? So I suggested, how about just a simple, instead of an append, just a find and replace function, which is, to me, is it would replace the need for an append,
Mm-hmm.
because you could just simply say find nothing or just add this field, or you can say, hey, I just got through screwing it up, can I replace it with something else? So
Well, you know me, I like to be thorough, so I wanted to demonstrate how not to do it first. So
yeah,
yeah, covered that off. When you put ID status and industry beside, my small mind gets easily confused. So I got
no,
to
but I have done the same thing, and I think even users who don't know they're doing it, you and I both
yes,
know we were doing it, we caught it, but
not
now how
smart
do you
enough to
fix
stop
it?
us from
That's the
doing it in the
question.
first place. But yeah, alliteration trips us up all up. But you know, the I know what you're saying, but they're in lookups where you're trying to, let's say that I imported a list from Dun and Bradstreet, okay, and I wanted to add to the values in there because I may have like pre-existing contacts that I'm importing in, and I want to be able to, and I'm just maybe I'm overstressing that particular example, but any kind of field that you want to track multiple sets of values on, if you have a reason to look up those contacts for whatever it is, whether it's import, whether it's purchase profile or whatever, there isn't a tool with search and replace that allows you to just add a value to a multi-select field. Okay, because if you do a search and replace, you're presuming that all the values in that particular field in that lookup are the same. Okay, when in fact many times they're not. You saw with the KPP partner. Okay, I had all kinds of different values, not just the KPP. Okay, but but other values unrelated to that. Okay. Forrest, you had a question?
Yeah, append a field, regular character fields. If you don't add the leading space, is it going to string the data together or is it going to fail?
So if nothing's going to fail, you're just not
Okay,
going to like the results. So if you've got a regular character field and you don't put a space, then KP like partner, there will not be a space between partner and friend. It will just be
right.
partner friend, like
Yeah,
one word.
it'll string it all together. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Now, like I said, I tried to come up with some kind of clever use case for just simple character fields. I just couldn't come up with anything. But if you guys know the functionalities and know to lead with either a space or a semicolon, these things are going to surface on their own. Okay. And you'll come up with your own use cases. Bud, you normally bug me with some question I hadn't thought of. Anything from you this
No,
week?
no, no. You did good, sir. You did good.
Okay.
Good. The only
Especially
the
like,
only other one that crossed my mind was when you did the lookup. And you're right. I use the multi search thing a lot.
yeah,
But you can't do a fast one with the new lookup list, and then what am I going to say? Either narrow the search after that. You can't narrow it with when to do it again the second time, but narrow what you already have.
yeah, I think it's careful when you're talking to customers that this isn't meant to be a silver bullet or a panacea for all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
ails
yeah,
them.
yeah,
But it's just express it as like another club in their bag that is going to save them time.
yeah.
Okay, and I think that's really the best way to look at it. I will tell you that in terms of the emails and the account numbers, this is something that is incredibly powerful and saves me a ton of time. In terms of like we all get the same spreadsheets from ACT, and being able to pull those guys up really, really quickly is a huge time saver. But when I get an AMA campaign and I'm looking for bounces and I'm looking for opt-outs, I'm looking for complaints, all of those things, it's nice to be able to just simply export, grab that data, look it up, and I may want to, on the client side, just automatically opt them out, based on whatever fields I've got in here, but it's nice to be able to do it with quick batch functions. Okay,
Yeah,
but one
and
of the
Ken, I'll tell you that's exactly the way I've used the multi-select is on email addresses, just like you're
yep,
laying out, and it
yep,
is so helpful. So nice job.
yep. Thank you. The one thing that I wanted to do differently with list lookup versus multi-search. I mean, I get everyone loves the ability to run joins. It just isn't possible inside the product like that. Um, So what we did was, if since we were limiting it to one field, that allowed us to add the operator as well. And that actually I was excited about because that provided us the ability to run negative searches or reverse lookups. And we can all think of use cases where you get a list of values and you want to find all the contacts that don't match that value. Okay. So, that's especially going to be useful when you've got small databases of like 500 to 1,000, and you're looking up. You've got a few hundred values, whether they're emails, account numbers, being able to look up the opposite. Okay, there really isn't much that you can do because in the advanced query, you can, actually no, you would have to go through and just say does not contain, does not, and just brutal. So this allows you to do it in seconds. Okay, Forrest, any last comments from you? Nothing?
Left.
Steve McCandlish,
Hey,
you want
Ken.
to talk about the Rockies? Yes, Lux.
If just by chance, this is, I mean, sometimes this happens. If your boss should append data to the entire database instead of just a lookup, is there any undo function?
There isn't, but you know what? This Sunday, I'd like you to spend all day looking up different ways of doing that.
I'm working for a car dealership. We're closed on Sunday. Sorry.
Okay, for those that are not familiar with the rampant inside jokes, Loves was complaining online about odious employers that make their employees work on Sundays. He somehow thought himself inclusive of this, but of course, it's not accurate. He's bathed in love and appreciation on a daily basis. I was hoping to end on a more sincere note. Matt, do you have any comments? I understand Steve not wanting to comment on the Rockies because they're the worst team in baseball. Anything from you, Matt? Josh? Oh, don't worry, Matt. Lubs is always telling me that I deliberately mute him, so I must have treated you that way today. Okay, Josh, last chance to finish the meeting on a high? Nope. One and only chance for a small business. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time. Next week, be sure to tune in as we cover the Opdater. The Opdater allows you to do batch changes to the to opportunities, like changing statuses, um, changing stages, changing cycles, all of that in one step. And we'll also be doing a demo of the new mail merge because I'll have V27 installed by then, and we'll walk you through how the new mail merge works, including the preferences and what options your customers will face. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend. Take care.